Welcome to another mathematical moment from the American Mathematical Society. I'm Layla Sloman, and today I'm talking with Dr. Outi Tervo, a senior scientist at the Greenland Institute for Natural Resources. The Greenland Institute for Natural Resources has recently partnered with the math department at the University of Copenhagen to figure out how mathematics can help animal research in the Arctic. Welcome, Dr. Tervo.
Thank you for inviting me. Well, this came to be because we are looking into animal behavior, and animal behavior is something a bit fluffy, like it's hard to quantify, and we wanted to team up with some applied statisticians to see if they could put some numbers into this animal behavior that we could then sort of work onwards from there.
So when you say that it's a bit fluffy, what do you mean by that? Can you give some examples?
Yeah, just that animals do all sorts of things. They, like on a big scale, like on their migration, for example, they turn to left and to right. They can travel 10 kilometers that way and 20 kilometers to that way. And it can all seem very sort of random. But then when clever statisticians look at the data, they can suddenly start seeing some tendencies and some structure in the data. And that was exactly sort of those kind of tendencies that we were sort of interested at.
Right. Were there specific questions that you were hoping to use math to answer?
Yeah, we've had actually several questions. Well, mainly we've been working with narwhals, which is an Arctic whale species. Lately, and we've been very concerned about the effects of climate change and the sort of the climate change related, like human impacts and warming climates, how they are affecting the sort of the migration behavior and long-term behavior of the animals, but then also sort of the short-term, very detailed behavior, how their diving behavior or their acoustic behavior is changed. And for that, sort of for these particular questions, we wanted to get some help from the applied statisticians and teamed up with them with the purpose of sort of describing these changes that we see and think will happen.
Yeah, maybe you can talk more about why you wanted to study the narwhal behavior. What does that tell you about climate change and about the environment?
So narwhal is one of the species that is very adapted to the Arctic. So they are sort of endemic to the Arctic, can only be found in the Arctic, and then obviously these species are going to be sort of threatened by the climate change more than other species that can sort of live in a bigger geographical area. And then because of ice is diminishing, sea ice is diminishing in the Arctic, we see a lot more human activities sort of approaching and intruding the Arctic, and we wanted to see how this development is, what kind of effect it is having on the narwhal. Well, narwhal is sort of one of the, it's not one of the main species, but it's one of the species that our institute is very, very interested in. It's one of the species that Greenland as a whole is very interested in, because it is one of the only true sort of Arctic species, and the sort of the global population is shared by Greenland and Canada. So Greenland has a specific sort of responsibility to keep these species safe. It is also very important for the Inuit culture, both in Greenland and in Canada, and therefore like an important prey item for the Greenlandic and for the Canadian hunters. So there's also an interest to maintain that culture and keep that culture safe by sort of keeping the species safe.
Right. So what have you been able to use math to accomplish so far in studying the narwhals?
Well, we've been able to determine at a very, very sort of high resolution scale what kind of behavioral changes occur when narwhals are exposed to noise. So we've been able to describe how their diving behavior changes really like in meters. So and how their diving behavior changes, sort of in that sense that do they spend less time at the surface or more time at the surface? What happens to their foraging behavior? But then also what happens to their energetic levels? And these kind of results are something that we can then use in our advice to, for example, the Greenland government that wishes to protect the species and manage the Arctic better.
Has your advice to the government changed in any way based on this research?
Yes, it has. We are now able to advise on, for example, some speed levels that we haven't been able to do before. So now we have a much better idea of what kind of noise levels and therefore the speed levels on vessel traffic would be sort of okay or tolerable for the narwhals, and sort of what is too much. The narwhals turned out to be much more sensitive towards noise than we were previously thinking. We did know that they are sort of skittish and wary of sudden and new noises, but we didn't know that they would react at such a large distance to the vessels and at that degree that these our collaboration would show. Well, one of the sort of the indicators was a very clear difference in their acoustic behavior. Narwhals, they use sound to forage because they dive down to 600-800 meters to find their food, and it's pitch black down there. So they need to use sound, so echolocation, to find their prey. And then these signals are used as sort of as a proxy for foraging activity in many toothway species. And we could see a really clear decline in these acoustic signals that then will show that they were foraging much less. And it's a big concern that the noise is sort of disrupting their foraging behavior, because that will also have some big impact on their energy balance in the end.
So was this something that was hard before to figure out qualitatively? Like, what about using the math and the research made it possible for you to figure this out?
Yeah, but just like by eyeballing the data, we could see that there are some clear differences, but we really wanted to try to find out at what distance to our exposure vessel that we were using in this experiment, in this sort of behavioral experiment. We really wanted to know at what distance do these major changes occur, and what is again major. We wanted to see when has the normal behavior of the whales changed by 25% and by 50% and by 75%, and when has it completely sort of stopped behaving normally. And in order to get those sort of thresholds that are really important when giving management advice, we really needed the mathematics.
So let me ask, how has it been for you to do this collaboration with this kind of interdisciplinary collaboration? Is there anything surprising you found about working with mathematicians?
It's been extremely rewarding. I have personally learned a lot. My sort of biostatistician's background is like based from uni many years ago. So it's been really rewarding to get all these sort of new ideas and new inputs and new tools from this collaboration. But then also, mathematicians sort of think of the data in a different way. So it's been very interesting to look at biological data from different sort of points of views, and I think we biologists, we tend to see the animal in the data, whereas the mathematicians, they see structure and patterns and tendencies in the data, and that is really rewarding.